Motor vessel, vacate your engine room, vacate your engine room. After 6 hours of repeated warnings, things escalated. The crew of the Iranian-flagged cargo vessel Touska refused to comply. U.S. forces had been tracking the ship as it moved through the northern Arabian Sea at roughly 17 knots, heading straight toward Iran. At some point, the warnings stopped being enough. The guided missile destroyer USS Spruance ordered the crew to evacuate the engine room, and then it fired. Several rounds from a 5-inch Mk-45 naval gun slammed into the ship's engine compartment, disabling its propulsion. A direct strike to stop the vessel in its tracks. Moments later, U.S. Marines launched from the USS Tripoli, flying low over the Arabian Sea in helicopters. They fast-roped down onto the deck of the cargo ship and took control. The vessel is now in U.S. custody. According to U.S. Central Command, the operation was deliberate, professional, and proportional. Since the start of the blockade, American forces have already turned back 25 commercial ships. But here's the real question. If warnings can turn into gunfire this quickly, what comes next? Now, here's where things get even more serious. The aircraft carrier USS Gerald R. Ford, the most advanced warship ever built, has just entered the region. It was confirmed today that the Ford is now operating under CENTCOM after transiting from the Mediterranean and crossing the Suez Canal just days ago. This wasn't part of the original deployment. This is a reinforcement, and it changes everything. Because now the United States doesn't just have one carrier strike group in the region, it has two. The Abraham Lincoln was already operating in the broader area, with the Ford joining in. That's 2 floating air bases, each capable of launching dozens of fighter jets, surveillance aircraft, and strike missions around the clock. We're talking about thousands of sailors, hundreds of aircraft, and enough firepower to sustain continuous operations for weeks. So ask yourself, is this still just a blockade? Or is this the early stage of something much bigger? The Ford didn't arrive alone. 2 guided missile destroyers, the Mahan and the Winston S. Churchill, made the journey with it into the Red Sea. These aren't just escorts in the traditional sense. Each of these destroyers carries advanced radar systems, missile defense capabilities, and long-range strike weapons. They're designed to intercept threats in the air, on the surface, and even from submarines. In a situation like this, they serve as both shield and sword. They can defend the carrier group from incoming missiles, or strike targets hundreds of miles away with precision. So when you see these ships moving together, it's not just about protection. It's about projection of power. And the scale of that power is growing. And then there's what might be coming next. The George H.W. Bush is currently en route to the region.
Roughly 1 out of every 5 barrels of oil traded globally passes through this narrow stretch of water. That's millions of barrels a day. Now imagine what happens if that flow is disrupted. Oil prices spike, shipping routes get rerouted, insurance costs skyrocket, global markets react almost instantly. And there's more. Iran has a history of targeting commercial shipping in the region using drones, missiles, and fast attack boats. Not constantly, but enough to keep tensions high. So this blockade isn't happening in a vacuum. It's part of an ongoing pattern of pressure, response, and escalation, and every move now carries more weight than the last. That's the question no one can answer with certainty. Maybe things stabilize. Maybe Iran avoids direct confrontation and the blockade continues without further escalation. Or maybe something changes. A miscalculation, a confrontation at sea, another vessel that refuses to comply. Because if one cargo ship ended with naval gunfire and a boarding operation, what happens if the next one pushes even further? And what happens if Iran decides to respond? At this point, it's not just about what has already happened. It's about what could happen next. And right now, all the pieces are moving into place.